Beneath the quiet hills of West Wycombe, there lies a man-made labyrinth, a place where firelight once danced across stone walls and secrets were never meant to be shared. They're called the Hellfire Caves. In the 18th century, members of the infamous Hellfire Club, led by Sir Francis Dashwood, gathered deep underground. What happened there has been debated for centuries. Scandal, ritual, or something far more unsettling. Because the deeper you go, the darker it gets. Twisting tunnels, hidden chambers, and at the heart of it all, a place that some believe symbolized the entrance to hell itself. So the question remains, was this just a playground for the powerful? Or did something actually take root in the darkness below? Beneath a quiet English hill, carved deep into the chalk by hand, lies a network of tunnels once used by some of the most powerful men in Britain. Politicians, aristocrats, even rumored royalty. They called themselves the Hellfire Club. What they did down there was never meant to be revealed. But witnesses describe rituals, shadowy figures, and something that may still remain deep within the caves. Because to this day, people claim something is still watching from the darkness. The story begins in the mid-18th century with Sir Francis Dashwood, a wealthy aristocrat known for excess, intellect, and defiance of societal norms. In the 1750s, Dashwood ordered the excavation of a vast network of tunnels beneath West Wycombe Hill. Officially, it was a project meant to employ local workers. Unofficially, it became something far stranger. The tunnels stretched deep into the earth, extending over a quarter-mile and ending beneath a church above, a design many believe symbolized a deliberate descent into the underworld. Dashwood was not simply an eccentric aristocrat. He was deeply influenced by his travels across Europe, where he encountered secret societies, classical philosophy, and alternative religious ideas that challenged the rigid authority of the Church of England. He developed a fascination with ancient rites, pagan symbolism, and the idea that enlightenment could be found not through strict morality, but through experience, through indulgence, defiance, and exploration of the forbidden. Some historians believe the caves themselves were designed as a physical representation of this philosophy, a controlled descent away from the world above, away from societal rules, and into something more primal, more hidden, and more dangerous. Dashwood formed what became known as the Hellfire Club, a secret society made up of Britain's elite. Among its rumored members were figures such as John Wilkes, and even whispers connecting Benjamin Franklin to its gatherings during his time in England. They met within the caves, dressed in monk-like robes, conducting ceremonies that blurred the line between satire, indulgence, and something far more unsettling. Descriptions of what took place inside the caves vary, but certain details appear again and again. Members reportedly wore robes resembling those of monks, yet their gatherings were anything but traditional. Long tables were set with wine, candles, and elaborate displays. Rituals allegedly involved symbolic reenactments, chanting, sometimes in Latin, and the use of mythological imagery tied to figures associated with the underworld. Some accounts suggest participants adopted aliases inspired by historical or even demonic figures, creating an atmosphere where identity itself became blurred. Whether these acts were intended as satire, rebellion, or something more serious remains unclear, but the environment they created deep underground, surrounded by darkness, ritual, and secrecy, was undeniably powerful. At the deepest point of the caves lies what was known as the Inner Temple. Visitors who descend into the tunnels today often report an overwhelming sense of unease as they move further underground. The caves themselves appear to have been designed as a symbolic journey, lined with references to death, rebirth, and classic mythology. Some accounts even point to references resembling the river Styx, reinforcing the idea of a passage into the underworld. This was not random design, it was intentional. A guided descent, not just physically, but psychologically. Witnesses have described cold spots, disembodied whispers, and an unsettling sensation of being watched. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures standing at a distance, never approaching, never moving closer. They simply watch from the darkness. One modern visitor described walking alone through the tunnels when they became aware of footsteps behind them. At first they assumed it was another group somewhere in the caves, but when they stopped, the footsteps stopped as well. When they turned around, there was nothing there. Moments later, they reported hearing what sounded like a whisper, too quiet to understand, but unmistakably close. The experience ended abruptly when their phone, fully charged just minutes earlier, suddenly powered off. They left the caves immediately. Among the most persistent legends tied to the caves is the apparition known as the Woman in White. Witnesses describe her as a pale figure drifting silently through the tunnels, often appearing near the altar deep within the cave system. Some believe she may have been connected to the Hellfire rituals, possibly someone who died under mysterious circumstances. In one widely repeated account, a visitor claimed to have seen the Woman in White standing completely still near the altar. At first they believed it was another guest, but something felt wrong. She was too still, too silent. When they took a step closer, the figure appeared to shift, subtly at first and more noticeably, before fading into the surrounding darkness. No footsteps, no sound, just gone. Moments later, the temperature reportedly dropped so suddenly that visible breath formed in the air. Today, the Hellfire Caves are open to the public, but not everyone leaves unchanged. Paranormal investigators have conducted studies within the tunnels, reporting unusual electromagnetic readings and unexpected audio phenomena. During one investigation, a small team set up audio recording equipment deep within the caves overnight. When they reviewed the recordings, they discovered several unexplained sounds, low-frequency tones, distant knocking, and what some interpreted as faint voices. One segment in particular stood out. A voice-like sound appeared to respond directly to a question asked hours earlier, despite no one being present at the time of the recording. Skeptics argue this could be environmental noise or audio pareidolia, but to those who experienced it firsthand, the timing felt deliberate. Visitors frequently describe feelings of nausea, dizziness, and the sensation of being touched when no one is there. Others report hearing whispers or distant chanting echoing through the empty corridors. Cameras and equipment are said to malfunction at specific points within the caves. While skeptics argue that these experiences can be explained by environmental factors, the consistency of these reports raises unsettling questions. Were the Hellfire Club simply rebellious elites indulging in elaborate theatrics, or did their rituals go further than history is willing to admit? The combination of secrecy, influence, and the cave's deliberately symbolic design suggests something more intentional. Some believe the caves were meant to create a psychological experience, a controlled descent into darkness, while others believe that repeated rituals may have left something behind, not necessarily a demon, but an imprint, a residue of intention. There is a theory, difficult to prove but equally difficult to dismiss, that places like the Hellfire Caves don't become haunted by accident, that repeated rituals, heightened emotion, and focused belief can leave something behind, something that lingers. Because if enough people gather in one place, focusing on the same intention, performing the same rituals, and believing they are reaching out to something beyond themselves, it raises a question that is difficult to ignore. What happens if one day, something answers? The Hellfire Caves remain one of the most unsettling locations in England, not just because of their history, but because of what people continue to experience there. And maybe the most disturbing question isn't what happened in those caves centuries ago, but what might still be there. The Hellfire Caves still stand today beneath West Wycombe, quiet on the surface, but not entirely forgotten. And some visitors claim the tunnels don't really feel empty. Whispers, sudden chills, and the sense that something is lurking just out of sight. Maybe the Hellfire Club was nothing more than a group chasing excess and scandal. Or maybe they disturbed something that they truly didn't understand. And if that's true, then perhaps the real question isn't what happened down there, but it's whether anything ever really left. If you enjoy deep dives into paranormal cases, subscribe here for more true stories of hauntings, the supernatural, and unexplained phenomena. And in the meantime, remember, stay spooky.